Sandy, what are some ways that you've incorporated this at school of helping kids embrace themselves?
I think one of the things we've done at school over the last few years is asking kids to identify a special word, a word that's meaningful to them, either a word that they aspire to or that they try and live by, and we ask the adults to do it as well. And we wear those words on our shirts once a month, but it gives an opportunity to have a conversation more deeply than you normally would about something other than academics, and finding out more about the student, what makes them tick, what their passion is, and what they really love, and the same for adults. And I think it's a lot harder for the adults to come up with their words sometimes than it is for the kids. But I found that it makes a lot more meaningful connections because you're having different conversations, and it's also encouraging kids to have conversations with one another about those words.
Mm-hmm. So did you both experience that opportunity to have a word? What was your experience with that? Was that something that you did feel brought out kind of a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, what I used for my word was pride. It made a sense of myself and to show that I'm myself and I don't have to be you. I can be myself.
That's good. That's awesome.
Yeah, and like there's all this talk about like parents telling their kids that they have to be themselves and like the life lessons that they learn from being themselves. But for the kids to be themselves, the parents also have to be themselves. So the parents have to be the best version of them, and that will make the kids be the best version of them.
I think Anna hit it on the head that we as parents have to model the behavior we want our kids to grow up doing. So discovering hobbies and making sure that we're maintaining friendships as adults and staying healthy and eating right and modeling those behaviors that feed into our authentic self and make sure that we're lifelong learners and modeling those things. I think you hit it on the head. We have to do the work on ourselves also, so that the kids, if we want them to be raised as thriving adults, they need to see what that looks like.
And I think with all of the different perspectives that are being presented here, whether it be at a camp or whether it be in a school or whether it be in your homes, the important thing to note about that is that if from wherever it begins at any of those locations, the emphasis is placed on relationships, then I think there's going to be great success. If there are unhealthy relationships in a home or in a school or at a camp, you're really going to struggle. So if the constant dialogue is always centered around the relational piece, I think everybody benefits.
Definitely. And I love especially too, I think adults sometimes feel like we have to present ourselves as like never making mistakes, you know, even though we're human and everybody makes mistakes. So I like that, being authentic. I think, what about at school? What have teachers done that have been really like authentic, that's helped you kind of feel more connected and comfortable?
Well, like the teachers, like my teacher now is just kind of flow, and he just goes with it. And it's really nice to have a teacher that's not like, do this math problem and then give me the answer. Like if we get a different answer, then he'll talk it through with us. And we can call him dude, and he can be like, yo dude, what's up? And it's just super fun to have a teacher like that, that's not like strict. And
I think we as adults sometimes don't recognize kids as equal members of our community, and when you start doing that and getting their opinion, like, hey, we're coming up with the weekend plans, what would you like to do? Do you want to play with a friend? Do you want to take a hike? They might come up with something that you didn't think of, and that connection, because it was their idea, is strengthened. So I think making sure that we're validating the kids as equal members of our community is really important.
Sure. I think camp counselors, I mean, a lot of times they're often closer in age, so that makes it a little easier for them to connect. But a lot of what they do is just having fun with you, which I think is very connecting. When you can have like a group joke or something funny, or, you know, call each other dude. You know, I think those kinds of things do just help you feel like you belong and you're accepted and you're really valued and they listen to you. So I love that you have had teachers like that who you really feel like are chill and you can connect with. That's really fun. That's great. Any other thoughts on this topic of bringing out the authentic self in our kids or ourselves?
Yeah, you know, I think as you're talking about being a camp counselor, or you're talking about the wonderful teacher you have, for some that just comes naturally, right? But for others, it has to be a mindset that you can actually grow, where you have to recognize and be cognizant of the fact that to have these wonderful students learn, they're going to learn better and have a much more engaging time and successful time in that sort of setting. So it's even if you're predisposed to not having that interest in teaching that way, it is something you could learn. Just like I'm sure at camp, counselors are instructed on very simple things that are going to be engaging, that are going to make it nicer for the kids. And then over time, that just becomes what you do. And I think the same is true in a household, to try to have that sort of mindset where you focus on very specific things to help everybody grow better.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've talked about just that connection piece, like making sure we keep up the communication. We've talked about kind of allowing people to figure out their own self. And I think part of that, you mentioned flow. How can adults help kids kind of explore or find things that they really enjoy doing? Like, what are some tips that you have for us on what it is that you need more of or less of in order to find things you really enjoy?
Maybe just personally, just asking, what do you like? What do you want to do today? And seeing what activities, like, do you want to try this out? Do you want to, like, not fully pressuring them, like, you should do this.
I think we plan, parents tend to plan a lot for kids, plan the activities rather than ask.
Or let them try it without a long-term commitment.
Yes.
In our house, we use books a lot so that kids can discover what they're interested in and what our kids are, which they're interested in very different things. But we use those books to be able to teach a lesson, but they're hearing it from a different perspective of a character that they're really into, or find out what type of book they're interested in and really help foster that. It brings up a lot of conversation in our house around literature.
Yeah,
It's funny, as everybody's talking, I put myself at my job, and I can tell you that every day when I go to work, I never look at the clock and think, oh my gosh, it's only 3 o'clock. I usually am looking thinking, I can't believe it, it's already 3 o'clock. And part of that is because every day that I go, I really do love what I do. And the time goes fast when you love what you do. And I think for parents, going back to what Anna was saying earlier about being your authentic, real self, a great thing that we can provide is to chase those things and do those things that we love so our students, our children can experience us enjoying them and then learn from that and hopefully have that same aspiration of wanting to find something that you're passionate about, that you love to do.
Definitely. I think too, sometimes people have this vision that like there's one way to be like a good parent or a good middle schooler, and that's no such thing. We all bring our own strengths, and a big gift I think we can give our kids is helping them find those strengths. Like, what is it that when you make friends, what's your best way of doing it? Is it by your friendly nature, or is it your interesting questions that you ask? So I think that just all of us as parents sometimes need to relax and realize that maybe our kid doesn't come out just like us, and they're not like the neighbor's kid or their sibling, but wow, what's so amazing about just them individually? And that makes everyone feel so much better when someone is seeing you as yourself with all of your funny quirks and your fun personality and stuff. So I think that's great. Any other thoughts on this, or that what you think adults can do a little better, or maybe ways that we get it wrong? Is there sometimes too much on the schedule? Do you need a little more chill time?
Well, you see these movies where there's like a bunch of kids in the family, and all the kids, the older kids, have good grades and perfect A students and stuff like that. And then the youngest kid is like, oh no, I want to be like them, but I don't know if I can. But the youngest one always turns out to be like the most interesting, or like.
Are you the youngest one?
No.
Okay, all right. I think that you were self-promoting there. I'm just.
But it's just kind of something interesting to keep in mind.
I think our expectations are challenging to express to our kids, and making sure that we're reiterating values and what is most important to us, that it's not an A, that it's being kind and a good neighbor and a good friend, and having empathy, those characteristics that make for a well-adjusted adult. But movies kind of set different expectations for the world, so, but making sure we're saying, well, you see this, but this isn't really what our family values, and communicating that.
Yeah, I think that's a funny and good point, because what's interesting is adults all know that what's really important is our social emotional skills. Like in life, in our relationships, in parenting, in our jobs, what's most important is that we can work well with other people and be friendly and kind and get things done and be responsible. So there's all these like character traits and things that are really important. But sometimes with our own kids, we're just like, get the grades, or that becomes, so you start thinking that that's what's most important, but secret is that actually some people who didn't get good grades end up very, very successful and thriving as adults.
The grades are easier to measure.
Yes, it's something that we can just look at and say, and it
Easy
does show
snapshot.
that you're being responsible and working hard, which is a good quality. But in the end, you're going to find your own way. You're going to find your flow maybe at your job or whatever is your thing.